Man, oh man, what is going on, guys? It's Mulligan. I'm back. It's been, what, a month since I last uploaded? Wow. Uh, so I want to apologize for not putting anything up for a while. I wanted to wait until the regular season of Smogon Tour 17 was over before I started uploading these battles. And then I was caught up trying to do some 4th gen Wi-Fi battles during the final week that the servers were still up for it. Yes, if you didn't know, Nintendo Wi-Fi connection for the Nintendo DS and Wii officially shut down forever as of May 20th. So no more 4th or 5th gen Wi-Fi battles. I will say there are people that have been hard at work though, trying to set up ways to still play Wii and DS games online after the shutdown. I'm sure the community will figure it out eventually if they haven't already. Anyway, I still have no excuse because I at least could have done a Showdown live or something, which was also planned. But I'm back, and today I've got the very first match from Smogon Tour 17 that I had against B-Lulz. This is round 1 of the Sunday tournament that was held in week 3, and the format was DPP. Some of you know how Smogon Tour works, but for those that don't, there are 9 weeks to a season. Each week there are tournaments held for one of 3 specific tiers, and these tiers rotate each week. So this season was the first season that had X and Y OU, the other two formats being 5th gen OU and 4th gen OU. The tournaments are held on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and you earn points based on how well you do in each tournament. After 9 weeks, it cuts to the top 16 players that had the most points that season, so basically the playoffs. Anyway, because this is 4th gen, I will not be showing the teams and doing a team preview, since it didn't exist in those games. So you have to do a lot more scouting when you're playing this generation, at least in my opinion. I will say that I did decide to bring a unique stall team that I had built and did a little testing with last summer. But I've kept you guys waiting long enough, so let's get into it. I lead off with Heatran. He leads off with Metagross. Since this is small on tour and not the ladder, I'm not expecting this to be the typical SR lead set. Regardless, I have the advantage since I'm running a bulkier EV spread with Shukaberry, so I set up Stealth Rock. He shows Tyranitar. I switch to Skarmory to scout for Earthquake or Superpower, and my opponent makes a safe play and shows Crunch. I say safe because he knew I'd most likely switch, but if I didn't, Heatran can't do much to Tyranitar, so him taking an Earth Power isn't the end of the world, so risk versus reward. I need to scout this set since it's too early to assume this is choice, and I switch back to Heatran to scout for the Fire move, but he goes for Ice Beam. I believe he was either predicting Dragonite or Flygon to come in expecting me to scout for the Fire move by switching out. But now that I know it's Mixtar, I don't have a great switch in for it, so I stay into Earth Power knowing I can live 1 Earthquake, but he showed Superpower instead. And I don't want to sack Heatran yet, so I reveal Spiritomb, and he goes for Superpower to attempt to finish Heatran off. Now, Spiritomb's not a good switch into T-Tar, but the reason why I went to it is because I want to see if he has Heatran or not, since Heatran's actually a major problem for this team as far as executing my strategy goes, and I need to bait it out, so I went for Will-O-Wisp, and he does reveal the Heatran. And now's the best time to fodder off my Heatran, because I need to find out what set this Heatran is running, even if he goes for Earth Power predicting the switch. He goes for Fire Blast instead, though, thankfully, and I stay in and go for Earth Power, but I was pretty sure my Heatran would get outsped and KO'd, and it does. I noticed the recoil damage, so this is a Life Orb variant, the most dangerous set for this team, and I need to take care of it immediately, so I send in Dugtrio to snipe it, and he reveals Breloom on the free switch. I have a surefire counter for Breloom, but I don't want to really use it as sleep fodder, so I go to Crest thinking I could handle Breloom with her instead of my actual counter, since this is a Rest Talk set with Cycle Shift and Flame Orb. He makes a smart play, of course, and subs first. I go for Ice Beam to break the sub, and he goes for the Seed Bomb. This is actually not a very good matchup for me because I'm taking a ton of residual damage between Sand and Flame Orb. Also, Ice Beam does not OHKO Breloom from this range, so I'd end up foddering Crest if I want to take it out. So I go for Rest since I plan to switch out afterwards as my opponent Seed Bombs again, most likely expecting the Ice Beam. Unfortunately, this makes it fairly obvious that I'm going to switch, so my opponent sets up a sub again as I reveal the Celebi here. I'm going to go for U-turn because I don't want Celebi to catch Spore and be forced to switch out, and I was hoping it would break the sub, but unfortunately it's not going to. And I have to end up going back to Cresselia, expecting the Spore, which he goes for. I'm going to stay into Sleep Talk, hoping to roll an Ice Beam. Unfortunately, I do not get it. This really wasn't a good switch on my part. In hindsight, I was being really stubborn about using Celebi combined with Cresselia to deal with Breloom when I probably should have used someone else other than Cress. I keep pressing the issue here though and go back to Celebi for sleep fodder. I was thinking I might be able to burn off the sleep if I stay in and threaten a KO. He goes for the Seed Bomb, and I just end up sticking with the plan here and staying in and revealing the Psychic to break the sub on the Spore. Here he's actually going to go for the Focus Punch. He was most likely expecting a switch, but I stay in, and the Focus Punch actually ends up doing a little bit more damage that I'm comfortable with. And it's here that I finally decide to just bite the bullet and bring Spiritomb in for sleep fodder. I really didn't want to because I didn't want to put myself in a spot where I'd be forced to make a tough prediction. Either Will-O-Wisp predicting T-Tar to come in or Shadow Ball and hope that Breloom stays in. He actually switches to T-Tar, which was probably his best play since I don't have a safe switch for it. I go for Will-O-Wisp again, and he just double switches back to Breloom. I probably should have just risked it and gone for Shadow Ball in hindsight since Mixed Tyranitar can't OHKO this Spiritomb with any move. But I'm staying in at this point, so I go for Shadow Ball, but he does go for the Spore, which will free up the rest of my team to do other things. I switch back to Celebi to finally attempt to deal with this Breloom, but he ends up going back to Metagross. Now I'm expecting this Metagross to actually be either Scarfed or Banded, with the latter being more likely. So I U-turn out, and seeing that Celebi outruns it, I go back to Skarmory. The worst case scenario was Trick, which still isn't that bad since I can just spam spikes, but he goes for Meteor Mash, and judging by the damage, this is definitely a choice banded Metagross. So I decide to play it safe, go for the Roost instead of a layer of spikes since Metagross outspeeds and can 2-hit KO Skarmory from that range. He switches back to Tyranitar, and this pretty much confirms he has a fire move on this thing, so I actually go back to Spiritomb since it's specially defensive, and again, Tyranitar can't OHKO with any move, and I decided to just sack Spiritomb here. You could argue this is a bad play, because that means Breloom gets to sleep something else, but my only good answer to this T-Tar has to come in safely. I'm playing a dangerous game here by doing this though. But Spiritomb goes down to the second crunch, and I bring in Dugtrio to snipe the T-Tar, and in comes the Breloom. I'm going to switch back to Cresselia on the possible Spore, since I'm down to 3 team members, but he sets up a sub. And I could have brought Celebi in, but if I had, I'd be forced to recover while he gets a free move off. And it's here that I realize it's going to take too much to keep Cresselia alive while this Breloom is in, since I only have 2 other team members to switch to, and one is literally OHKO'd by everything. I also haven't seen his last 2 team members yet, so I still want to keep Dugtrio around just in case. I stay into Sleep Talk, try to roll the Ice Beam to break the sub, but I get Psycho Shift. Crest goes down to the Seed Bomb. I had to bring in Celebi at this point to recover up and hope I can weather the storm against this Breloom, who I haven't handled too well in this game, despite having a counter to it. He does go for the Spore. He switches to Metagross, knowing I will stay in to try and burn sleep turns. I have no choice but to go to Skarmory, even though I know Explosion's coming. I need Celebi to deal with Breloom as well as the likely Water type he's got, since I've already seen Heatran as well. Unfortunately, even Skarm can't live a choice banded Explosion from Metagross, and it's a double down. So I go to Dugtrio on the free switch to hopefully trap one of the unrevealed team members, or Breloom. Unfortunately, one of the last 2 is Mamoswine, which he shows here. Can't stay in, so I go back to Celebi to tank the incoming Ice Shard. The fact that this is a Life Orb variant makes the situation even worse, and I'm hoping that he doesn't have the rare Ice Fang, so I stay in to recover. He does switch out and he reveals his last, which is Starmie. Celebi is going to be the last Mon standing at this point. It's not looking good for me at all. I know Ice Beam is coming, but I have to stay in and U-turn out to Dugtrio to finish Starmie off. I didn't see Leftovers or Life Orb recoil, which really scared me, and I was hoping it wasn't Scarf. So I go for Earthquake, and I do outspeed it and KO the Starmie. And in comes the Mamoswine. I have to sack Dugtrio since I need to keep Celebi as healthy as possible. He Ice Charge for the KO, and I bring Celebi back in on the free switch. Now I have a very small window of opportunity to win this game. I have to go for Recover here and hope that Ice Shard doesn't KO. He goes for it and just misses the KO, and I get the Recover off. I know what I have to do. I need to recover up to full and try to take out both Mamoswine and Breloom by switching between Psychic and Recover during turns. and hope Mammo doesn't crit me with Ice Shard. After going for a second one, he switches back to B-Lulz on the third recover. But I guess after such a long game and with the recent hacks, I think he might have tilted and he forgot that I actually had Psychic, which easily KOs the B-Lulz, and B-Lulz is going to end up forfeiting the match. It's unfortunate that I needed a little luck to go my way in order to advance to the next round, because even now I feel like B-Lulz outplayed me, and I admittedly came into this tournament really rusty as far as 4th gen was concerned. I ran a calc on Mammo's Ice Shard after the game, and it turns out that he didn't get minimum damage, but it was a slightly below average damage roll. Ice Shard should do 35% on average to that Celebi, and unfortunately it didn't quite make it there. That was definitely the turning point. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to like the video and leave comments below. I doubt you loved it, but if you did, feel free to share this video with your friends. It does help me out if nothing else. Anyway, stay tuned for round 2, guys. Until then, take care. Peace.